Welcome to the Red Sox Alley Show on Stitcher, on YouTube. I'm Rob Goodman along with my co-host Flanagan. How are you this evening?
Pretty good. How's it going?
Good. So since Korn and I did our last show, a lot's gone on with the Red Sox as far as acquisitions. And first of all, Mike Napoli was signed, 3-year contract for $39 million. And that's a pretty good signing, I think, being a right-handed hitter, playing those two positions. But what do you think of the logjam at the catcher position right now?
Yeah, for sure right now it looks like there's a log jam at catcher. I think Napoli, like you said, will play a good amount at first base. I think it also gives him flexibility in a player that can play more than one position. Possibly gives him flexibility to trade one of the catchers, maybe Salty, for maybe pitching.
And you think about it, and they have Lavarnway as well, whether or not they will use Lavarnway and Napoli at catcher. And plus, don't forget, they signed David Ross from Atlanta. So that's really a fourth catcher that's on the roster. So I think like you said, someone has to go. It could be Saul Tamacchia.
Yeah, and I think there's still a few more catchers on the free agent market, so they still have time to add more catchers.
Well, I think Korn always said you can never have too much catching.
Yeah, I think it was pitching.
Oh, pitching?
Yeah.
Could be. And they've also signed, and you brought this to my attention just on the way into the studio, that they signed Shane Victorino, an outfielder. I always thought he was a great player with Philadelphia. What do you think of this acquisition?
Yeah, you can tell that they are definitely signing him for defensive purposes. He's going to give you 15 home runs, 60 RBIs a year, so not a ton of offensive production. But someone who's naturally a center fielder, going to play right field with Ellsbury playing center. And if you need to give Ellsbury a break, once again, you can move somebody over to another position. Like Napoli you can with at first base. Here you are with Victorino playing right mostly, and then sometimes center. And
you've also got Johnny Gomes, who was signed. Now, the thought is they overpaid for him, but not to the point where it's a real concern. 2 years, $10 million. And I don't know if you heard the interview with Johnny Gomes, but he feels excited to be in Boston. He feels like playing left field at Fenway is something he's been getting ready for his whole entire life, which I thought was very interesting.
Yeah, I think that, once again, I think it goes back to the mantra that Lucchino and the rest of the Red Sox brass spoke about just last week and the week before, is they don't want to get into long-term deals. They rather pay a little bit more but have the shorter time frame, and it gives them some flexibility so they're not ending up with a 8-year, $120 million contract like we've seen with some other free agents.
Right. So let me ask you a question about this team in general. So at the end of the season, they made the trade with the Dodgers. They got rid of Adrian Gonzalez. They got rid of Josh Beckett. And they got rid of one other player and cleared all that salary room. Now they're signing players like a Mike Napoli, like a Johnny Gomes, like a David Ross, probably more Ross and Gomes than Napoli, who are strong presences in the clubhouse, it sounds like they're solid leaders. Was this team that much of a bunch of thugs last year, if you put aside Bobby Valentine being the manager, that they need to really concentrate on bringing in really good citizens? Is that the impression you get?
Well, I think what you saw, I don't think the Red Sox were that far off. As bad as it seems that last year was, as bad as the end of the previous year was, they're really not that far. They have a lot of talent still. And for folks to think that they're just going to win 70 games next year, they'll be surprised. I think this team with some leadership and guys that really kind of get down and dirty, back to kind of the dirt dog days and the team back in 04 and things like that, where you've got a lot of mid-level guys that can play really well, and you're not stretched to the max in terms of years.
So from a character standpoint, are they simply going in the other direction of not taking any chances that this team has lack of leadership? Are they just bending over backwards to make sure that this team has leadership and has a good core of, as Korn would say, stabilizing influences in the clubhouse? So is that what they're doing?
Yeah, I think that's what they're doing. I think, and that goes probably also to John Farrell's kind of attitude, just very workmanlike, and I think that's where we're going, to a team that works hard. And that's what was missing last year.
Well, he's workmanlike, and he's also a very professional type guy. And I think you're right. Farrell plus these players is going to hopefully remake the entire character of this team and this organization. And it's sorely needed. And I didn't mean to say that the team was a bunch of thugs like the Cincinnati Bengals that we know.
No, but there was definitely personality problems in the clubhouse. I think this goes a long way, between jettisoning some of that personality last year and the signings this year. I think you can tell that this is going to be a different team. I think Boston will embrace that.
I think so too. And you look at they got rid of Josh Beckett for obvious reasons. Whether you believe everything you heard and read about his personality and his commitment to the team or lack thereof, Adrian Gonzalez, you couldn't find a better first baseman and a better hitting first baseman, but he didn't have that character. He was a laid back kind of guy, kind of like J.D. Drew, although with a lot more talent than J.D. Drew and a lot more talent that he was able to harness. But when you look at it, he was I would call a weak presence, and that's what they got rid of more than anything. Not necessarily a bad person, not necessarily someone who's a negative influence.
Well, I know a lot of people liked Adrian Gonzalez. I did as well. One thing that got to me a little bit, though, is he was one of the characters that was involved in going above Valentine. So,
right.
I don't know what to say about that. I think I've voiced it in other shows. It didn't really sit well with me. I think you approached the manager, but it might have been a situation where the manager really wasn't approachable.
Right.
You saw a couple of instances last year with that.
Yeah, I mean, my hope for Farrell in general is that he's kind of like Terry Francona was when he came to Boston. He had a couple years in Philadelphia. They weren't good years at all. And, Farrell had some years in Toronto. They weren't good years. I think he kind of had lack of talent there and really was trying to get as much out of a team that had a lack of talent. And now he's arrived in Boston. He's got a couple years under his belt. I think he's going to approach it very differently. And I think he talks a good game, but I think he means it. And I think, he's a good communicator that's put together an exceptional coaching staff on top of it. So I see a lot of positives in that, and I think a lot of positives that are much more tangible than simply Bobby Valentine telling the press, this is something special. This is a gift. It's not a gift. It's a serious job that you need to do, and you need to go about it seriously from day one. And I think Farrell shows that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the fact that we haven't had any crazy write-ups in the Boston press so far already tells you something, that this isn't going to be a Wild Wild West situation like it was last year. I was willing to give Valentine the benefit of the doubt, a year ago.
I was too.
We all did, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, unfortunately, it didn't work out well. There is one concern I think I have with Napoli is in the fact that while he's hit 20 home runs for 5 straight years, he hasn't played. He's only played one season more than 112 games. So that's just a watch out. We'll just caveat that right now at the beginning of this session.
And he missed 33 games last year.
Right.
Yeah, he missed 33 games last year. Good.
But I think you're right. I think overall they're going after guys that will do well in town, that work hard, and are here to win. I'm not sure you had that last year. I think you're going to get that this year. And you know what? I'm okay if they don't go after, and they probably don't need to now, but Josh Hamilton or some of the really, big name, long years, big contract type of guys.
But they do need more pitching. There's no question. They need another starter. They need to see where their bullpen ends up. They got rid of Atchison, and they got rid of Rich Hill, who hadn't pitched a whole lot in the couple of years that he's been on the team. But they need to obviously look at that pitching staff, and I think they are looking at it because that's paramount to them or any team being successful.
Yeah, I agree. I think as Korn always says, is you can never have too much pitching. We're short here. I mean, we've got a couple guys that are definitely top of the rotation guys, regardless of the years that they had last year. Lester and Buchholz, right? I would say that Lackey is going to surprise more people this year than he's going to do better than people expect. That's going to be my call right now.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yep.
And then, of course, Felix Doubront continues to grow. and we have a guy in the minors right now that we traded for as part of that Beckett deal that might be ready to start pretty soon.
Now, you're referring to De La Rosa?
Yep, that's right.
Is there any reason why he wouldn't be in the mix from spring training?
No, I think he has a shot out of spring training. If they acquire a number 3 or something, it pushes him down, but I think they can groom him at some point to come up.
I agree. I hate to agree so much with you, but I guess I have to.
I know. Can we start disagreeing more, maybe?
Well, we're almost done with the show, so maybe we'll have to hold that till next time. If you and I disagree too much, maybe Cornell will get in between the two of us to keep us apart.
That's true, yeah.
Well, I want to remind our listeners that if you're listening to the show, you're listening to it on Stitcher Smart Radio, and please check out the screen you're on and download the app and check out all the other great content that's on Stitcher Smart Radio from the Boston sports stations, 98.5 The Sports Hub, WEI, the Planet Mikey podcast from WEI, the Weiner Line. Again, content from Chicago, Detroit, Pittsburgh, radio stations, podcasts, great shows like ours. Download the app while you're listening to it. It just takes a minute, and you'll see what great content's on there. And you could be watching this show on YouTube. So if you really want to check it out again and see us in the library at the Central Connecticut studios of Red Sox Alley, just join our YouTube channel, like the video, and that way you'll get the notifications. If you check out the channel and sign up for it, you'll get notifications when we put new videos out there. And I wanted to thank Flanagan for joining me on relatively short notice, and hope Corn's doing well. He's on assignment tonight.
Thanks a lot. Just one quick question before we go.
Go ahead.
Can you tile my face on YouTube?
Well, we could put like a black mark in front of your face if you're afraid of somebody recognizing you.
Well, I wouldn't want to scare any of our listeners or viewers.
Well, by now they may be scared off if they're watching on YouTube, but hopefully not. Well, again, thanks for joining me, Flanagan, in the library at the Central Connecticut Studios. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.